I don't think people realize how much the Web3 gaming industry got hammered in 22. I mean, the 22-23 bear was just brutal. As you see, a lot of people actually leave Web3 when the game turns out sucking and then go and try in Web2.
Yeah, that started happening recently more and more, yeah.
But that's funny because those games suck ass in Web3 and they're going to suck even more ass in Web2. Look at Rockstar with GTA. They build fucking GTA again and again and again and again and again until they make the best fucking GTA in the world. Imagine if you started World of Warcraft and someone gave you 400,000 gold. That game becomes way less enjoyable.
It's enjoyable when you need to buy first mount, right? When you're begging others to send you one gold.
You have to be better than your competition. That applies to anything. You cannot get away with cloning an existing game and just slapping Web3 on it. For a real breakthrough to happen in Web3 gaming is going to be
Today we have Matthew Buxton, who has spent more than 2 decades inside the gaming industry, and now he's using that experience to push Web3 gaming forward. As a founder of WarpChain and co-founder of Misty Games, he's building an ecosystem where players, creators, investors, and studios plug the same value loop. So Warp is aiming to replace the traditional publisher structure with a decentralized one and give players a real stake in the worlds they help grow. So Matt, welcome to the Locked In podcast.
Hey, nice to be here. And thank you for taking the time to chat to me as I wander about the streets of Stockholm and talk Web3 very loudly and scare the locals. It's all good.
Yeah, you're taking the walk right before YGG Summit, so
exactly.
Yeah, I hope
flying out tomorrow.
Oh, nice. Yeah, hope you had a great time there. So I want to go back through the time. You know, like you are like 20 years in the industry, and like what was like the sparkling moment that you decide you wanna build in a Web3 space and the transition from Web 2 to Web 3?
Yeah, sure. So I can factor this into, I think it was sort of late 2021. And I'd always sort of dabbled a little bit in crypto around about the 2017 peak when everyone was going crazy over it. I'd always been kind of looking into it from the outside, you know, buying a few coins here and there, a few boomer coins, staking a bit of ADA back in the old days when we thought, you know, the trending cryptos on Kraken or whatever would actually be the ones that would take you there. But I didn't even know the crypto gaming was a thing until, you know, after the NFT summer. And then I got introduced to Axie by someone who was looking to start a small studio to do crypto games. And the guy contacted me out of the blue. I think it was October 21. I was still at Rovio at this point, and we got chatting. I didn't think too much of it. I was interested in his startup. And then he came back working for, I think it was Jungle, and essentially said, "Hey, do you want to pitch a crypto game?" I was like, "Fuck yeah, I do." So I pitched this gigantic fucking RPG mobile game. And the company that I pitched it to was more specialized in hyper casual games. So that went down like a lead balloon. However, the guy set me up with a bunch of investor friends of his, and ended up going to FCC in summer 22. Didn't have a ticket, just went there off the back of, you know, the excitement and talking to Polygon about jumping on and grabbing them as a chain with a deck. And then I essentially, you know, made some friends there, met some people, blagged my way into some parties, and the rest is history. I got my round together, and by sort of early 22, early 22, 23, we already, early 23, we got the first version of the game together. And we ran that up until mid 24, getting up to 250,000 players monthly. But the problem was there wasn't anyone in the industry who was willing to fund from a sort of a publishing point of view, a scaling point of view, anyone who could give you that assistance other than the original VCs. And at the time, the VCs had moved many metas and run out of money in the bear. I mean, I don't think people realize how much the Web3 gaming industry got hammered in 22. I mean, the 22-23 bear was just brutal. All of the projects that were funded in 21 off community, they kind of survived. All of the projects that came new with less money and possibly better ideas got annihilated because the VCs put money into the same guys they put money into the first time, and they sort of saw the bets on Web2 games and others as destined to fail because it gave us essentially a tenth of the money of the nearest big startup. And what can you do with 1.27 million when you've seen people raise 80, 90, 100, 200 million for essentially similar mobile games? So it was tough, but we managed to actually do, I think, 5 times what anyone else did in our bracket. We outcompeted companies that had raised 5, 10, 12 million. And then at the end of the day, we ended up having to sort of pack it up. But not content with that, I decided to actually rally the troops. And this time, instead of just going for startup with my best mate, went and talked to my guy, Pete, who I'd worked with for 20 years. He hired me into Jagex back in the RuneScape days, like a very long time ago. And we essentially got Spartans together. We said, okay, this is the time. We need to save this industry. We'll get the Spartans together. One of them was a guy called David Blomquist. I noticed he came off his 5-year golden handshake or so for selling his company. And he sold an iGaming company. I was like, I'm going to chat to this guy about Warp. And he was into it. He was into the idea of the crypto stuff. We went to sort of Pocket Gamer Connects in London in, I think, early 24 and assembled the rest of the team. We had about 70 or so Web2 execs on a massive bender in the pubs across London. And out of it, we got some of the best people that I've ever worked with across my history in games. And now we have a startup with 300 years of experience across Web2 and Web3, including the former COO of Decentraland and many others from many of the other Web2 game studios. So that's kind of how the genesis of this happened. We came up with the idea of Warp as a publisher to fill in that gap between what I could see in the industry was every single project. If you weren't like a god level project, you want a project that the VCs just adored. You want a project that had paid all the right people and greased the right hands early on and had hundreds of millions in the bank, make a $2 million promo, and then fuck all. If you weren't one of those, every single one of the SaaS businesses that raised in the bear, they raised tens of millions to extract from companies that were building games. And they did that, and they killed them all. Whether it was CEXs just draining the liquidity, whether it was whole rounds making the tokenomics unsustainable, whether it was tech that either folded before the company actually could get their game out or ended up costing prohibitive amounts. We've seen every sort of reason to say that, there is a sort of an entire ecosystem of vampires ready to suck the blood of a fresh gaming project. No gamers and no gaming projects. And this was the issue. It's like people said in the gold rush, hell, picks and shovels. And I said to people when I was there with my Web3 gaming startup, one of the few surviving at the time, I'm surrounded by fucking picks and shovels. I literally have people offering me free picks and shovels at this point to try and get me to use it. And no one is fucking feeding the miners. And the miners are very, very close and haven't yet made it. So this is the genesis of Warp. And it was essentially, I started floating the idea around about Gamescom in 24. And then, by the sort of start of 25, we had our team all fully there, all fully working. And now we have 6 chains that we've signed with as preferred publishing partner. We have 21 plus capital guilds that have nodes and take part in the ecosystem. We have multiple high-level clients. We have fantastic games such as Illumia and Gladiator Mayhem, signed and releasing soon. We've talked to nearly every single founder that shut up shop last year, and sort of found out what was up with their game, how they struggled, and we're building back better, as they said, that us unsuccessful American campaign build back better. But we're actually going to make gaming great again. I think that's going to be what we do. And we're here for it. We're here for it. And part of this is connecting people with players, making sure that the players work for themselves. And in working for themselves, then we're gonna win.
Yeah, crazy story, man. The game was Call of the Void, right?
Yes, it was Call of the Void. And you know the
Yeah.
best thing? We're going to publish that game. So that's actually going to
Oh,
come out Q1. So the whole point of Warp is, building one company to save another company and to get that company up and running because we were so fucking close. We had so many hundreds of thousands of users. We had so much kind of love for us. We had some really good ideas and some really good, essentially, thesis, which we never got to prove out. So that's part of one of the games that we're going to be publishing.
yeah. When I was researching for this podcast, I assumed that was like the initial thing that sparked you, right, to start the Warp. So, like, when you see like so many studios raising like ridiculous amount of money and failing, and how the things are going on, like today in Web3 gaming, do you think that was like kind of necessary to happen? Do you think this is like good, bad? Like,
I mean, it had to happen. Like, if the purge didn't happen, we'd still be stuck with the same ridiculous concepts that were getting glazed on timeline. The same terrible founders who were essentially just sucking up all the airtime and telling people that, they were the best thing since sliced bread. They're telling people that this was the only way to do things, that they knew better than anyone else, that people from Web2 didn't have a shot. Like the ridiculous levels of hubris of some of these people raising absolute god awful sums of money and not even being able to maintain a fucking pixel game that probably would have taken you a couple of hours to vibe code these days. I mean, it's fucking shocking. Like, not only did a lot of these raise tons from VCs, they also exploited the fuck out of their communities, raising tens of millions from NFT sales of pity pixel things. And then, what happened is, as soon as the bottom fell out of the NFT market, the bottom fell out of their markets because none of them had gameplay value. All of these things were artificially rare. None of them had any reason to exist because they weren't useful in game. They didn't have utility. They were waiting for things to be built. They were meant to be premier items of the ecosystem. A lot of these NFTs, a lot of gaming NFTs were just shit. It was communist style. We set the price. We tell you how much you want, and we don't let the free market have anything to do with it. A bunch of anarcho-capitalists. They never really let the market decide how much these things were worth in games. If you look at any of the most successful games that have people buying stuff on the black or gray markets, like accounts and the rest, most of the prices are infinitesimally smaller. But we decided in Web3 gaming that we needed to have items that were worth thousands or tens of thousands for basic games, because these things could apparently let you earn 20 cents an hour more than the other thing, or they were slightly shinier. And none of that actually had any meaning in the real world because most of the people who played these games were not game players at all in the first place. I mean, that's why we got Warp. And so we are real players. And, we know that you can't price anything more than about $99 in a regular game. And those games make millions a day. So we must be doing something right.
yeah, and like if you look like crypto games, right? Like many of the games, they set the price for these stuff upfront, right, with NFTs, instead of like them earning value over time. Or if you look, I don't know, World of Warcraft, like there's tons of people that are like selling gold, right? And like obviously initially when they had no player base, probably didn't have any value, right? As the player base is increasing and demand is increasing, right? It has more value over time. And like what are your thoughts on for example, like if you look World of Warcraft, for example, you can buy gold, you can buy certain stuff, but some things can only be obtained through the game, right? Like if you wanna do like highest level raids, you need to win them in the previous raids. Do you think we kind of lack that in Web3 or?
Look, I mean, I think essentially a lot of people didn't understand about game design. They understood about tokenomics design. And their idea was that every single thing should be tradable. Everything should be tokenized. There were so many silly things about, we'll do soul-bound reputation systems. I mean, if that is ever worth anything, they will just sell the private keys of that particular reputation if it ever becomes worth money. So people don't understand that people will literally sell full-on email addresses with their name on it to someone else.
Yeah.
People don't care. People don't give a shit about these things. When you have these kind of, systems, even if part of it is in Web3, I mean, a lot of people like to, shit on Web 2.5 and say Web3 projects should be solely focused to Web3 people. I mean, there is a class of Web3 projects like Lolaland that does very well, doubling down on Web3, doubling down on crypto, doubling down on degens. And that's a very specific market. Now, what I believe is that those things have a right to exist. Um, and they have a right to exist alongside things that will essentially bring in the masses, the billions of regular gaming into rewarded play. Now, rewarded play is massive. You can already go to Gamescom and see huge booths for adding cash incentives to your games in a Web2 thing. So they're doing the things that crypto is trying to do and has natively done. Because they're doing it with Web2 business sensibilities, it works because they're not charging $400,000 for a fucking implementation. They're not charging you like hundreds of thousands for 5 people to tweet about this thing. They're literally providing services that put cash into games on a Web2 basis that's already hooked up, that is done by a genuine UX designer, as opposed to a guy whose only qualification is they have a broccoli haircut and fucking Crocs. Like, these are genuine people who worked on genuine things, who know what genuine product design is. And Web3 UX has always been fucking terrible. It's like MetaMask has taken them, 10 years to show your total portfolio value. And the idea of looking at things and having to switch entire fucking networks without seeing the other ones, that took them like years to solve that basic shit. And they still don't have the things that say make sense to basically a lot of the other exchanges like Kraken has, that you can just clear up all your dust and cache it. Like, these things are simple. These things are like having spam filter on your email. Like, Web3 just believes on principle that that kind of lack of control is what's really bad about the world. Whereas what they don't understand is that none of those people who are espousing it, out of all of those people who are saying like, oh, if we put a spam filter to only show the coins that were relevant, like, only very, very, very vanishingly few of those people would actually be smart enough to tell what their transaction they're signing actually means. Most people just look at the string and be like, oh, you know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
why I think we need guide rails, and we need Web2 games to be for Web2 people, and the blockchain side of it to serve those games in growing those games and pushing those games and allowing people to earn, because those are all of the things that come easily to Web3. But the things that don't come easily to Web3 are UX design, fun experiences, enjoyment, and non-financialized rewards, such as just being part of the community. I mean, even the biggest and most expensive to join communities, instead of actually doubling down on what made them great, which was the sense of community for being a holder of their NFT, they went and immediately tried to make money from games and making them. And I wish them the best of success. I'd love to see these things working. But, if they'd have actually put access to airport lounges and clubhouses and made them into a sort of private members club, I think they would have done a lot better. They would have survived a lot better, having in real life benefits as opposed to mysterious utility, extra tokens, staking, and all the rest of it. I mean, the most innovative thing that came out of Web3 gaming was essentially the bank system from World of Warcraft. You put your gold away and you get more gold. It's fucking pathetic. No one wants to live their dream by taking 10 wolf pelts and selling them, and then putting that 10 gold in the fucking bank and waiting for a year to have 12 gold. That just sucks as a game mechanic. Like, a bank is for fun things. You get items in, you take them out, you go and you kill a bunch of shit, and you do stuff. Every game should have currencies that are essentially worthless. Every game that should have currencies that are worth a lot. And every game should have experiences at the center.
Yeah, regarding MetaMask, I think nowadays, for example, it's very difficult to see your own address. Yeah, and it's funny to me, like, regarding like selling whole accounts, if I remember well, for example, with Blizzard in the past, you couldn't even like switch account to another email, so you had to give your main email pretty much if you want to sell account. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Since
that was good.
Simon told me, for example, that you help Web2 games to onboard onto Web3. How do you, for example, how do you identify like whether the game has potential to be onboarded into Web3 and that they can get like better traction there?
Well, I mean, the game has to be good in Web 2 first. So if the game is working in Web 2, then it has potential to be onboarded into Web 3. If the game is failing in Web 2, then it's not going to get any better by having Web 3. Web 3 is a multiplication tool. It's like timesing everything by 3. If your game is worth 0, it's still going to get 0. If your game is worth 1, you might get 3. But if your game is really good, Web 3 can accelerate it massively. So like any game we publish, we make sure that the game is actually, hitting those key metrics that we've been there for years. Like if you spend money on the game and you get players into the game, do they spend more money than you spend? And if the answer is no, they spend less money than we spend, then it's not worth putting that game into Web3. I mean, it might be worth, redesigning the monetization features or sort of working on that side of side.
Yeah.
But if at the end of the day, if the game is not profitable, putting it in Web3 is not going to save its ass. That's the bottom line. You need to have a game that at least has that potential. And maybe the game is still new. Maybe it's still going through the sort of alpha or beta stages. And it has a potential for a strong player-driven economy. It has a potential for a sequel where the stuff from the previous game will be useful in the next game. Has the potential for an ecosystem. There are lots of reasons to want Web3 in your game. And saving your shitty game is not one of them.
Yeah, and
because as you see, a lot of people actually leave Web3 when the game turns out sucking, and then
that started happening recently. Yeah, that started happening more and more. Yeah,
but that's funny because those games suck ass in Web3, and they're going to suck even more ass in Web2. If you think the competition is hard in Web3 when you've got 1,450 games that have ever been released, of which around 50 are actually currently playable. Do you think it's going to be much easier in a place where you have 800,000 apps on the App Store? And not only are you competing with all of the other fucking games, but you're competing with TikTok, you're competing with Instagram, you're competing with Snapchat, you're competing with all of the biggest attention-based platforms. And you're not only that, you're competing with streamers who are essentially playing those games for people so they don't even have to fucking buy them anymore. I don't think I would ever buy a horror game now that I watch Markiplier play them because I don't need to. And I spoiled the game for myself when I had fun watching it for free. Yes, I had to sit through some YouTube ads or whatever, but why would I ever buy that game? Some people get encouraged by it and want to buy it. But if I've seen all the stories in a detective game, why would I buy the fucking detective game? So you've got to be aware that like the entire paradigm has changed. Like games are now more and more made for forever games. You've got more and more of these kind of big budget games that are either failing or they're doing something truly innovative like Expedition 33, or Arc Raiders. You've got something has to be different, something has to be new, and you have to be better than your competition. That applies to anything. You cannot get away with cloning an existing game and just slapping Web3 on it. You have to have an innovation in there somewhere. If the game's 2D, maybe it's 3D now. If the game does this, maybe you do that. There's lots of stuff that you can do to improve games. Just look at, Fortnite and PUBG and all of these kind of things. Many of those games are very, very similar to each other in Web2. They're similar. You could even call them clones. It's a difference between a Web3 clone, which is essentially we've taken exactly the same fucking game, we've built less of it, and now we've stuck Web3 on it. That's what a Web3 clone is. A Web2 clone is we've built this entire game, we've added these extra systems to it, and we've also, upgraded the graphics, and we've put it in a different setting. We've given it an entirely different feeling, That's a difference. Yeah. That's like +1 design. If you look at Angry Birds, Crash the Castle was a Flash game, right? It was a Flash game. And if you look at Crash the Castle, it has exactly the same birds, like as stones. You start off with a catapult, which is standard rock. You start out with one that's better than, that's smashing glass, like it splits into 3. You have one that's a bomb, Like all of
Yeah,
that
yeah, but
mechanic was in a shitty game, but put it towards a mobile device and use your finger to slingshot it. And that is plus one design, and that becomes $1 billion franchise that they literally sold to Sega for $1 billion.
yeah, sometimes small twist can bring like huge benefit, right?
Exactly. But that's what we don't do in Web3 because a lot of the people are not smart enough to analyze what was good about the original and then improve on it.
Yeah, and for example, like when you're building the game or helping them, like, is there some metrics that you track which after you see it, you say, okay, this is enough, we're gonna stop, this is not worth continuing, or you should keep pushing on, right?
Generally, it's sort of engagement and retention. So, I mean, it's retention as long as they have content to play, and engagement, the amount of time they actually play that content. I mean, and the difficulty with Web3 is you can kind of force engineer that. You can engineer the
Yeah,
retention to be high by paying people to retain.
with
So,
tokenomics, yeah.
exactly. So, what we tend to look for is we tend to look for what I like to call the raw retention, the ones who are not getting the money, the ones who are not particularly farming or don't have access to the crypto side of it because they haven't bought whatever doodad the game's locked all of their crypto stuff behind. Like, do they retain the game? Do they play the game? Do they want to come back to the game? And there's where you see it. And I think one of the things that I think is hilariously bad about Web3 and crypto games is this weird idea that, people want to play arcade games 30 years after arcades went out of fashion. Like, oh, I have to pay to continue. Have to pay to continue. Fuck that. No one does that anymore. Like, what the fuck are you like? What's with the ridiculous boomer game design? Like, oh, we need to pay for this item up front to unlock the ability to do X, Y, and Z. Cough. Give them the free game. Let them play the goddamn game. And if you want to do this, oh, it's Web3 only for the people that want it. Fuck that shit. If you're designing Web3 only for the people that want it, you're designing a game that doesn't know whether it needs Web3 or not. If your game is a true game, that's a Web3 game, it needs fucking Web3 to function. And that is integral to its value proposition to a player, to the entertainment, and to the excitement of that game. And it being financialized in some way as an ultimate reward or as part of it, or as the ability to trade between each other. I mean, imagine if you could just sell all the Pokemon, you collected Pokemon games with each other, like you could with Pokemon cards. I mean, Pokemon cards, right? Collectible card game. You can sell and buy cards. That game doesn't fall over. That game doesn't suck. That game is fantastic. People still fucking collect Pokemon cards and they accrue value year on year, and people buy.
Yeah, I think they went
extreme
10x
money.
or something, in last year or two, yeah.
I mean, look, it got popular, these people streaming the pack opening videos and all that shit. But if you just look at it from a sort of a simple principle, Magic the Gathering, any of those kind of card games, all we needed to ever do was to make a fantastic game like that and just allow you to sell and trade those digital things that you already wanted, like you would cards. Right?
Yeah.
That's all we needed to do. We didn't need to do any of the other shit on it. And I think what happened is a lot of that got mixed in with fundraising. And then it got mixed in with this idea that you fundraise from this, and you're paying a debt to those people that you have to support these particular items indefinitely for the life of the game. And eventually that will cripple you. It's just like that airline that once gave away these extremely rare, like, pay this much money and you'll have free flights forever. It ended up bankrupting them. There is like when you buy ads free for life from a game. I mean, I was at a company that took over a game, had a massive ads free for life thing, and 90% of the users had bought it. And so the company was going bankrupt. It was going bankrupt on this one purchase that was like $10 for ads free for life. And that was insane. So they had to actually make a sequel where you couldn't buy ads free for life because they couldn't grandfather over all of those people into, not watching adverts. Because at the end of the day, they would pay that one thing for that, that instant convenience and never have to see it again. I mean, if you buy ads free on YouTube, that's a fucking subscription,
Yeah,
and so that's how you have to do. If you want ads free on a free mobile game, then it has to be a subscription. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And this is the problem with crypto. You buy one permanent item. That permanent item is meant to make you hundreds of thousands times more money than you paid for it. So maybe you minted an ape. The minimum price there was like $200. It was like 0.19 ETH or something at the time, or 198 or whatever. And that ape is meant to then carry you for life. It's impossible. That's impossible for one asset that you buy for basically for free to accrue enough value to keep you happy for fucking life. And the fact it happened in 21 was a fucking miracle. And those people who did those things and made those things at that right time, they were good and they were lucky and they nailed it at that time. Could they extend that and give value to those things for eternity? Could they? Fuck, it's an almost impossible task, especially if they're new at it. So I have a lot of sympathy for those people, especially since they didn't realize that royalties were optional. And that only got discovered later, which completely gutted the NFT industry, interestingly.
Yeah, like I think a lot of the Web3 audience is kind of looking into like not just gaming but everything in Web3 in that way. Like I'm gonna buy once and then let's see what ROI can I make on it. Like will it return in a year or like 2-3 years? Do you think, for example, what Abstract did? I saw you speaking somewhere about it, but they're like pretty transparent about like we're here to make money. And people that are like joining anything on Abstract, they know that they will kind of have to spend. Do you think that's a good approach or no?
It depends. Like, I think there are always going to be casino-style games. There are going to be sweepstakes. There are going to be things where it's fast money, fast in, fast out. I don't think that's necessarily where I see the games industry and crypto being the biggest impact. But I think those things work for the audience that we have now. And there's a difference between the audience that we have
DGen
now.
audience.
Yeah, the DGen audience or gamer audience or farmer audience or however you want to call them. There's the audience we have now and that you can find in the right ways, you can find potentially things that work. And then the audience that we want to get in, we have to do something entirely different and entirely special for them. And we'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Like, also, have you thought of some specific genre or something that you would like either like to see more or that you think it has highest potential in Web3? For example, for me, TCGs are like obvious one, but now we have like so many of these. So
well, I mean, there are not so many of them successful, and most of them have tokens, and most of them have this and that. And TCGs, look, it's a hard thing to do. It's very fun. I love TCGs. I love deck building. But to actually make a good one, it takes time. I mean, and look, Magic the Gathering's got like a fucking 30-year history or something back from 96. I mean, how do you compete with a TCG with a 30-year history when you're just spazzing out like AI-generated card backs? I mean, you can ape it, you can copy it, you can try to take in some mechanics and make it this or make it whatever. I still think TCGs probably have one of the highest Web3 potentials, even if the only thing they do differently, the only thing they do is turn the cards into NFTs and then do essentially print runs of them, so that there are only ever X many in the set. Because, most games like RPGs or MMOs, technically, even though the drop chance is low, there is always infinite of epic items in World of Warcraft. You can just farm them again and again and again. And if they were worth money with the way that the drops work, eventually someone could farm that enough to lower the price to near enough zero, because you would be able to farm it. And that's what happened with Diablo, because you cannot cross non-limited run items with money in that same way. Because as soon as the Diablo auction house opened up for real money, you had people absolutely piling into whatever was valuable at the time and spiking the price. And then whoever was trying to make money out of it farmed the living shit out of that until there were enough items that the price crashed. And it made the entire thing just a mess. Made it so that people who wanted to compete would have to spend far too much money to do that, because the item prices were inflated by demand. There was no winners in there, really. Even the farmers, even the people trying to do that weren't winning, because everyone was piling on that. And that's because the simple fact of the matter is that there are certain kind of percentages and chances that don't work well with those kind of prices. Like if something is essentially infinite in supply, you have to restrict the amount of it. Look at diamonds, right? Diamonds are really fucking common, but there's a massive monopoly on diamonds with De Beers, and they strangle the world supply. I mean, you can pretty much pick up diamonds for industrial reasons pretty cheap. I mean, it's carbon's very common. I mean, you can fucking make diamonds now. I mean, you would think that it would like lower their value massively, but it doesn't because they restrict the supply. And essentially, they're a high priced thing that is only high priced because there is a limited amount in circulation. These things are only bought for special occasions, and they are bought for occasions that make those people basically essentially burn them, as in put them in a ring that then becomes significant to only that one person. They soul bound all the diamonds that they sell. So diamonds are basically sold as soul bound items, and the supply is restricted. And people don't really trade, like normal, regular people don't trade diamonds. They might sell their grandmother's ring when they're desperately poor. And that's why the resale price is so low, because there's no demand for diamonds that have been resold. Because, it's a very clever way of looking at it is that if you have something that you have essentially infinite supply of and you want to keep the price high, then you have to throttle that supply, not just by rarity, but by amount, just raw amount that you release. So if there's like 10,000 of these epic items and there's only ever 10,000 in the game, and they naturally will find a floor and a ceiling based on them being 10,000 and people occasionally losing them or burning them or losing accounts associated with them or quitting the game. Eventually, there will be fewer and fewer in circulation because if they just have a flat rarity, there will always be a certain amount in circulation based on the percentage of players that open that box.
Yeah, I think that scarcity aspect works perfect pretty much in any luxurious market, right? But
Yep.
in gaming, we would kind of need to have like almost perfect bot prevention, which we don't have in Web3, right? And people would continuously farm, right? Which creates additional supply, right? We would need to have, besides that, more people coming in, which we don't have as well, right?
I mean, even if you have more people coming in, then eventually there's more people leaving. And at some point you'll have gluts in the item.
You always have, downwards at one moment.
I mean, and that's why when you have any sort of rarity-based items that you have things like dusting, where you can essentially dust those cards within Hearthstone, where you have those kind of mechanics where you can get rid of those unwanted commons and things like that. I still think that even if you're going to print 1 million of these things and you have 30 million players, it's still rare. But you have to always, I think, no matter how big your player base is, you have to kind of still do things as if you were Magic the Gathering and as if you were doing print runs. And if the game is popular, the cards go up. If the game is popular, the cards go down. And that can be for whatever, for MMOs, for all of these things, because you can always make another boot of speed. And as long as you don't do things that have raw stats on them, like a sword, if you have the most amazing, most powerful sword in the game, NFT sword, and it's got an attack of 300, it's the strongest thing in the game. And that sword is going for like $10,000 because there's only 10 of them. And let's say we are doing that there's only 10 of them. As soon as you want to power creep and bring out a sword for 301, then those swords essentially lose their value. They lose all of their value because just like in RuneScape or any of the other RPGs, the thing that does it more efficiently to get to what you want to earn becomes the most valuable thing. So if you were to bring out 50 swords and attack 350, then those other swords would become essentially worthless. They would go from the most expensive in the game to, practically an oddity. They still have more value than, say, the average object, and they still have more value than the average common sword that approach that. But they would be careful about power creep, expectations, and how that sort of stuff happens. So I always like to think of things like the perfect things to make into NFTs, things that add bonuses or percentages to base stats that can remain in Web 2, that can be nerfed and balanced and all the rest of it. So if you have an invisibility cloak that's invisible for 5 seconds and you can't get that any other way than finding it in the game, even if you have 10 or 20 of these invisibility cloaks, if you have then another invisibility cloak that's invisible for longer, if you still only have that effect in the game for invisibility cloaks, and there's only 2 types of them, one for 8 seconds and one for 5 seconds, they still retain the innate value of being invisible. Whereas if you have something with stats like attack and defense and all the rest of it, they will get power crept out of existence. So when you look at things like, I don't know, a
Yeah, makes
percentage
sense.
chance to counter on a shield or something, that is worth having. But having a shield that has 50 defense shouldn't be made into an NFT, because what if you have to balance it? What if defense is too big of a stat? Or what if you have to buff it? Like, then the whole point of having an NFT, that you're actually removing your item from the ownership of the game into your own hands, is over. I mean, imagine you buy an expensive NFT thing and it gets balanced. If it gets rebalanced, then you're not
Yeah,
succeeding in this whole idea of taking this thing away and actually having it for yourself. You know what I mean?
yeah, and these things happen often. You know, I'm a big TCG
Mm.
player, for example, and I realized that pretty much all TCGs in Web3 kind of found a way to mess the game up. Either
Yep.
they leave open API so you can see what deck other player is playing. Either they locked the cards so they can't nerf them or buff them once the new expansions are coming,
Mhm.
right? And you don't have option like to adjust the game. Either they want to like go back to like Web 2.5 or something. And in general, like we can see, for example, when you look at Web 2 game, like so often Web 2 games, when you try the beta of Web 2 game, like you sometimes don't even realize why the game is in beta, right? When you look Web 3
Yep.
games, like so many games that are kind of released, they're like, in my opinion, not even close. What are your thoughts on that? Do we
Yep.
need to rise this standard or?
Yeah, no, massively. I mean, we need to massively raise the standard. I mean, I'm going to the Game of the Year awards in Web3, and I can guarantee you that not many of those games you could say are actually fully released. And it would be
Yeah.
absolutely insane to have a Game of the Year awards in Web2 where all of the top contenders are in some sort of alpha, beta, or pre-release stage. It's absolutely insanity that you think the Game of the Year, like Expedition 33, finished game, Arc Raiders, finished game. I mean, yes, we do have that joke about early access and Steam and all of this shit, but early access Steam games don't get to be Game of the Year. They never do, they never will, they never have. And they can be fantastic games. But, you know, you're not going to see Game of the Year for something that's not finished. I mean, Web2 gamers will judge you fucking harshly. They think that crypto is kind of poison. It's the equivalent of a rat shit on a wedding cake. You're definitely going to have the wedding cake thrown away, you know? It's not going to be something, oh, just pick off the shit and you'll be fine. No, that rat has been, you don't know where it's been. It's shit on the cake. You don't know whether it's inside the cake. They just think of it as massively suspicious. I mean, I'm literally outside, standing outside the Ubisoft building. You know, I wonder if we can, I don't know if you can see that if I zoom in or something.
Yeah, I
This
can
is,
see, yeah.
yeah, so this is the
Oh,
Ubisoft
nice.
building. It's funny, like, I blame them personally for this, because as soon as NFTs and the rest came out, they were like, yes, we are going to put the NFTs in all the games and all the crypto, and you're going to love it. And every fucking Web2 gamer was like, no, Ubisoft, we do not want that. We do not like that. And it's the only way to turn a fucking hardcore Andrew Tate fan into Greta fucking Thunberg, is to talk about crypto. And then they're like, it's destroying the environment. It's destroying this proof of work. It's so horrible. It's cutting down all the trees. Like, they don't give a shit about that stuff normally. They happily roll coal and, you know, support the shooting of socialist infants. They don't give a fuck. But what they don't want is they don't want Ubisoft finding another way to take more money off them. And not understanding the whole tenet and principle of Web3 is, because you have your own things and your own money, you can leave that game more easily than if you're locked into a Web2 ecosystem where you can't. So, in fact, our games not only have to be better than, you know, they are now, but they have to be significantly better than Web2 games, because you can leave them far more easily. I mean, if I don't like my Web3 game and it's super popular, I can leave without actually, I can even in some cases get my money back or more if the game was fantastic. Imagine the game was as good as Arc Raiders and you played it early on and it's not your thing. You wanted to play Poketopia, you wanted to play the Pokemon game with the new stuff coming out, where it's like Animal Crossing times Dragon Quest builders like Minecraft thing. And, you know, you want to play that game and you leave Arc Raiders and you've got loads of early gear and it's kind of rare. In Web3, if that was a Web3 game, you could sell all of that shit and then off you
Yeah,
go to
yeah,
Pocketopia. And that would enable you to leave the game far more than if you were to be like, oh shit, I paid like $30 on skins, I paid like $50 on these decals, I've done all of these missions, I have all this rare shit. As soon as I walk out of this, I've lost it all. Um, and then we
yeah.
don't realize that Web 2 is invasive like that. You cannot leave it. You cannot custody your own shit for a reason, because if you can, it's easier to leave. And because we're making things easier to leave and fairer on people and telling them that their time should be rewarded, our entertainment products must be 1,000 times more entertaining than they are to get people to literally stick around. Because if anyone can leave a good game, then that game has to be bloody good to make sure people come.
Yeah,
Because if all games are good and all games have the propensity to earn money, if every single one of the games, like imagine GTA 6, Arc Raiders, and the new Pokemon game come out, and you can all earn in it about $50 a month playing that game religiously. You could technically swap between any of those games at any time without losing anything and
yeah,
without
yeah,
paying them
yeah.
anything. And you would be able to go from one game, selling all your stuff, and then going into the next game and being relatively advanced. And that kind of economy where you have that level of freedom and you have that level of financial agency with 3 massively popular games where there's demand for all of the shit that you've got in it. If there's demand for all of that, then you can leave. The only reason people can't leave Web3 games is because there's no fucking demand for their shit that they paid way too much money on, and the price has gone so far down, they can't sell it without crying. And that's not how it should be. We should have
Yeah.
the 2 or 3 most popular games in the world where you own all your shit. They will have to be so good to keep you on one versus the other. Imagine FIFA versus what's the other one? Like Pro Evo, FIFA and Pro Evo. If you have FIFA and Pro Evo, and they're both equally powerful football games, I think FIFA's always the winner because it's slightly easier to control than Pro Evo. If you had those 2 games and they had all of those cards, all of those things as NFTs, you could switch between being a Pro Evo or a FIFA fan. You can't do that right now. It's like switching between Sega and Nintendo back in the day. You just literally can't do it. So I think,
Yeah, but
yeah.
I think the reason why they don't do it is like, why would they take like the percentage of the fees of the sale when they can get the full sale, right? So that
Yeah,
for
that's
them
true. Exactly. But why would they give the ownership of something and a player can sell up all of the cards they have, and then
yeah,
that player can then leave to go to the other game? I
yeah. So
mean, they work by basically retiring cards. It's the same way as Magic the Gathering takes cards out of circulation. Because if they left them in circulation, you would essentially have a game where, you know, the best deck is still the best deck after 20 years. I mean, you have to ban things, you have to nerf things, you have to take them out of circulation. With a football game, if you have another equivalent football game, if you allow those people to own and sell their own stuff, then they could easily leave for the other equivalent football game. Whereas if you don't, and I've sunk, let's just imagine that you've sunk, I don't know, $200 into FIFA. Why would you go to the new Pro Evo when you've already got $200 sunk into FIFA?
yeah.
You're committed. You're committed. And I think that's what I mean is the standard we have has to be higher. The things we give should be fucking amazing and they should have meaning. Like most people throw away their PlayStations, they throw away their, the discs, they sell all of these things, but they keep the save cartridges. They keep those saves. Like a lot of people I know have kept those, just the save files, those little discs and shit, because they have the memories of all the good games, all the progress they had. Some people even have those without actually having the machine to run them, just for the memories. And I think we need to create more meaning in this space.
Yeah, I remember on Sony PlayStation 1 or Sega Dreamcast, I don't remember, you could save only like 10 games or something. So in order to save something new, you had to delete something older, right? That was funny time.
They were still like that in PlayStation 4. I mean, some of those games were like 500 gigs or something. You'd have to buy another drive to get them on there. And I was like on PlayStation 1 where you had the little card and it just had the files, the save files in it, and you had it on the disc. Those were good times, man. Those were good times. Yeah, it's all good.
I also left my League of Legends account with like tons of early skins and everything. I never sold it. I still have. I even logged in maybe last year or something. So for the Web3 gaming, do you think like that there are higher odds for some, like, let's say AAA call game to have some breakthrough, or something what happened with Angry Birds that you mentioned, you make a slight pivot, right, and then the game takes off?
I think for a real breakthrough to happen in Web3 gaming is going to be a Web2 company that has more money than God discovers what the actual formula is. I mean, we can see it a little bit with Remix and Micros and things like that. Maybe that's overly extractive. Maybe that's not working as exactly as good as what one of the many other Chinese RPGs. But if you find something that is a pivot, that is done well, that is done with great execution, and that has and carries with it an ecosystem value, then I think it's going to happen. Like Pokemon is the one thing that I could say would very much suit turning into a Web3 thing. And there's even talk of them having integration with Pokemon Home and Suite. And the idea that the
Yeah, I heard
Pokemons could
that.
actually
Yeah.
be NFTs. Like that to me makes sense because a Pokemon is a fucking Pokemon in whatever game of Pokemon you play. Like they have the same stats largely. There's a few adaptations between the mainline games and Pokemon Go because of just the nature of them. But you can send a Pokemon to Pokemon Home, and then you can pick that Pokemon up when you've discovered its equivalent in Pokemon Scarlet or Violet or whatever it is. That to me, an ecosystem play like that could be tokenized. But to see someone dare to tokenize their entire ecosystem, that would take some structural, fundamental change in how much money that these games companies think they could get from doing that. Like it would take a real thing like remote trading in Pokemon Go to be successful and to actually have a real reason for people to be reselling these items and the Pokemon guys getting a big cut out of it. I mean, look at GameStop. When you handed your games in back in the day, yeah, like $2 for them or whatever it was. Like you'd see dudes there with entire consoles, entire generations of consoles and tons of games, and they'd be like, $40 in store credit. And just like it's
Yeah.
insane. Like the shit deals we got in Web 2. People should remember how much you had to give them about 300, 400, maybe $700 worth of shit to get 40 of store credit. I mean, it was a joke. Even the GameStop account plays up to it sometimes. I mean, that's how badly they ripped us off back in the day. Like all of that time we put into that, all of those hours we spent beating those things, all of that shit and like all of the in that. And we got fuck all for it. And we did it because it was awesome. And if we don't have people who want to play Web3 games because they're fucking awesome, we're not going to ever win. We need to have Web3 games that are so awesome that they're awesome to regular people in spite of the Web3. Just the same way as like people fucking have ear pods now. When everyone thought you look like a dick walking around holding your phone and shouting at it. But nowadays people don't say that. Like everyone fucking has them. If you have wired earphones, you look weird. And it used to be the people would be the same people who would shit on Web3 would be the same people saying, yeah, Bluetooth headphones are never going to catch on. They're going to be terrible. We have to be as useful as having Bluetooth headphones. We have to have something that makes the game so much better by being Web3. That's something that you cannot do by making a Web2, or that it just generates an entire new level of gameplay or an entire new level of thinking about preserving your memories from the game or how you enjoy it or how you interact with it in the future down the line. We need something that is that fundamentally interesting to make a breakthrough. And it doesn't matter to me. I think it could come from an indie game, could come from a AAA game, but you're never going to actually find real, genuine AAA money spent on this industry until we have success. And that's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on, for example, now in Web3 we can often see like one studio they build arcade, they build FPS, they build TCG. Like, well, none of them actually took off. The thing that makes sense, or they should like just put all eggs in one basket.
Look, it's not about all eggs in one basket. I think it's about finishing a fucking product. Like it's very difficult to understand why company with a limited runway and a limited raise decides after they still haven't finished product number one to pivot into product number two, product number three. And you have companies that are struggling with 3 or 4 different products in various stages of release, with tiny amounts of users. Many of those users bought into that ecosystem by paying money for NFTs and things like that. Like generally, if you look at a studio in a big Web2 institution, let's just say that your company specializes in RPGs. You're going to make RPG after fucking RPG after fucking RPG. You're not going to make an RPG and then pivot to a fucking golf game unless it's golf RPG. You're not like Angry Birds, right? We made physics-based games. If you turned up there thinking that we're going to do fucking puzzle games to that physics-based game studio, you would be sad, you know? If you turn up to Miniclip, Miniclip makes sports games. If you don't want to make sports games on mobile, you don't go to Miniclip. Like, we don't have people specializing in shit right now. We have people producing the easiest thing to produce in a genre that they think people will like, that they think people can raise in, and chancing it. You know, you genuinely need to say, we are going to be an RPG studio and build only fucking RPGs until you're damn good at it. Look at Rockstar with GTA. They build fucking GTA again and again and again and again and again until they make the best fucking GTA in the world. You know, you have to have that level of dedication. You have to be the fucking sushi chef of games. You have to spend 7 years at the fucking plate before you even get allowed to chop the fucking fish. You know, and this is what it's like, and this is how it's always been like in these craft industries. AI can shorten that time. AI will probably take over, and this kind of level of craftsmanship will just be absorbed into the ether. We'll eventually be able to prompt a game as good as Oblivion or Elder Scrolls, whatever, just out of a simple prompt. And no one else other than you who made it will want to play it, because why would I play your game where you're the hero that's made it? I'd make my own game where I'm the hero, and it has the other things that I enjoy. And you'll find then the content creators and the rest, the ones that end up with the most popular games. And in the meantime, everyone has room for a shared cultural experience. And I think blockchain's a great hedge against that, because it actually, you can prove undeniably that that is from that right game. Whereas with AI, you could just say, okay, this is AI Tetris version 950 from the same seed. No one will know if they're playing the same game as anyone else. You could be playing a million different fakes with the same seeds and the same programming. So AI, with blockchain will verify that the things you own, the stuff you do, actually fucking matters to someone somewhere. And I think that's important. But yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's very difficult, like, to find that unique concept that will kind of work, right? So that's one reason. And then it would be stupid to pivot when you already have something that shown great results, right? It makes more sense to make it like even like way better. And like, since everything in Web3 is kind of price based, right? So tokens obviously need to have like utility, right? How do you create economics within the game that actually like demand the token spending, right?
The same way you would do it in a Web2 game. But you just have to understand that who your audience is and what they're doing, when they get access to those tokens. Can they get access to them as an actual crypto thing at the moment they get them? Or do they have to take them out of the game via a special method? Like, there are loads of ways that you can preserve economies and do these things. I think the main thing is that tokenomics experts will not tell you how to make game tokens inside your game work. They can't tell you shit about game economies. I've never met a tokenomics expert who has been a game economist. Not one. But I've met a lot of VCs who've asked, who's your tokenomics guy, to people who've spent years making money and doing monetization in games. And those people have had to hire a fucking useless tokenomics guy who essentially completely and utterly destroyed their game economy by telling them stupid fucking things like Web3 people want to pay huge amounts of money for stuff. Otherwise, it's not going to work for them. Just do your normal game economy, tokenize the things that make sense, and then see what happens. See where it goes. If you have something that people want and it's limited enough that people will pay to get it, then it will work. If your token is over available because you've given it out to everyone, you cannot recover from that. Imagine if you started World of Warcraft and someone gave you 400,000 gold. That game becomes way less enjoyable. I mean, it might be enjoyable to someone who's played it for years, who understands what that could do. But if you were just given World of Warcraft on your first turn, and you were given 400,000 gold, where you could literally buy any item in the auction house at any point in any number without actually having any effect on you in your early days, you would have every single good thing, every single tricked out thing. You wouldn't have to do a quest. You wouldn't have to do shit, but you would be woefully underleveled because you're not playing the game. You know, it just completely would fuck up your experience if you were just insanely rich. And that's what a lot of these games do. They give huge, fucking ridiculous airdrops, massive rewards. And that
Yeah.
400,000 gold is probably only worth about 30 cents anyway. So that's what you're telling people, is that the time it would take you to earn this normally is like 10 years or something to earn that much gold normally. But you're telling people that that time is worth 30 cents. That's massively, massively undervaluing it. You have to lock your token value not to a stable coin, but to stable time. How much is time in your game worth? And
Yeah,
that's my theory on it.
it's enjoyable when you need to buy first mount, right? When you're begging others to send you one gold, right? But after that, it kind of loses sense at some point. Like
Exactly.
Yeah, at one interview you said like that games are choosing the chains that are willing to pay them the most.
Yep.
I kind of agree with that, and like what are your like thoughts? What's the right way? Like, because if you look at the players, right? I also realized that in Web3 gaming, often players, like, if they play games on Ronin, they will stick to Ronin. If they play games on Immutable, they will play games on Immutable.
Partly that's to do with the natural sort of tribal culture. Partly that's to do with UX and UI, making it easier to stay from one to the other, and not easy to bridge assets from one thing to the other, or convert them or sell them potentially and get on from one to the other. So sometimes you're stuck with it. But if you look at what the grants are trying to do, ultimately games are trying to be attracted to a chain for money. And the reason why they attract a game is because they want lots of people to use their chain, because they want lots of transactions on their chain, and they want to earn fees on those transactions. So any game going to a chain and thinking, well, I'm going to go to Avalanche and have and get lots of people who play Avalanche games, or I'm going to Immutable because they've got so many games and so many people doing it. Like, they only pay you money to get you to come there and bring the people that you're going to do there. If you look at any company like a Launchpad or like a Seedify or like anything like this, you pay their marketing. If you want to sell something on Magic Eden, does Magic Eden pay to market your NFT project? No, it fucking doesn't. You pay them to help market to their existing customers. You pay at every point to grow their shit. Like, you pay to grow their business with your marketing dollars. You're attracting people to those Web3 businesses. And that's just unsustainable. Chains, on the other hand, are the only businesses that will pay you to be part of it. And that's because they value your players, your users. So if you're using a questing system in your game that's taking people outside of your game and then fighting against other questing systems and other people on different chains and different games, then you're never going to get that grant. You're never going to get it, because you're never going to get enough people into your game without paying them more than the others. Essentially, you're trying to get people into that game, and you're bleeding yourself dry through one of the many Web3 things where it's just a race to how much you can give people to do very little in your fucking barely finished game. I think most people end up chasing metas because they just don't raise enough money to finish the fucking game in the first place. And that's the sad truth of it. And the ones who have enough money to conceivably finish the game, they don't fucking know how to, because they raised it in 21. And they've never made games in their life. And that's kind of where we're at. I'm going to have to jump. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
Okay. I didn't know that. Just one last question for Dan.
Good thing, man.
Like, during the journey, right? You had in 20 years. Like, it's a lot of time. Like, did you ever get some moment when you like kind of struggled a lot, and how did you went through it, and how do you keep going when you have times like this?
Oh yeah, man. I think so. I've had constantly, like, there's been times when you're like, this game isn't performing. Do I actually know anything about game design? Like, when you're trying to do prototypes and you just see the numbers coming up and they're shit, and you're like, what happened to the magic when I was doing this and this and it would just work? Like, when you when you put through this proposal and you force like a lot of things to happen around it to make it happen, and then it turns out, it's not very good. Like, I think one of the biggest things that keeps you going is the fact that, you can just try again. There's version control for a reason. You can roll back to the previous version. You could try again. And with games, especially, and with companies and all the rest of it in Web2, the more people you know, the more people you can talk to about your troubles and the difficulties with design and why the players are all doing this year and why no one's doing that this year. The more people who you have there for you, the better. I mean, I would have not had so much love for the industry if I didn't go to conferences and if I didn't meet people, didn't meet the same people I'd worked with the last 20 years, and I didn't see them growing in their careers and see them starting off like me as juniors and then becoming heads of department and eventually running their own shit and doing all of these kind of things. Like, it's about going through with a group of people. It's about finding a tribe of people that, you can talk to about all of these inane shit. Like, you can have a conversation about monetization in mobile games in 2012 with someone that would just bore the living shit out of anyone else. But that's how you get through those troubling times, those times when you kind of want to jack it in and give it all up. It's the same with Web3. Surround yourself with people who are also on the same mission, who are also heading for the same target. And that's what I'd say will keep you sane.
Yeah, Realize Wolves Die is great because of that. Like, there's a lot of people that are like very open, and in general, besides that group, I didn't met so many people that are open to speak when they're difficult times, right? They're only there when it's good, but when it's bad, they're not like that. And one last thing, there you have a Warp TG, right, in a few days. So can you just say about it?
No, so we are looking at the market and pushing things around. Essentially, we want to let our platform come up and do a few more things before then. We've got a lot to achieve in terms of the games that we're releasing. So we're pushing that back to the sort of the first part of December. So we have more time. The market's not entirely there at the moment, but for us, there's more exciting things coming. So we need to get on it, get a better narrative, as they say, going into this, and make sure we got some more serious insurance. There's so much stuff that we've got going on. It's fantastic. I want to dedicate more time to that. Having a TG for the sake of the TG is not necessary.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, thank you for hopping by here. I didn't take into consideration that you're traveling. Sorry, for that. I understand. I appreciate you, and it's a pleasure to meet you, and appreciate that you're being here. So thank you, Matt, a lot.
Yeah, thanks for doing the podcast. I'm really happy to be part of it.
Yeah. Awesome. I will leave the links in the description below. If you liked it, make sure to follow. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take it easy.